Before I tell you his story, I need you to make me a promise. Don't watch this as an outsider. Don't watch this thinking I would never, because by the end of this video, a psychologist is going to look you in the eye through this screen and tell you something that's going to bother you for days. Your brain and a cartel boss's brain are not as different as you think. In fact, they might be identical. Let's go. Psychologists have a concept called the situational override threshold, the point at which your environment overpowers your morality. Every human being has one. The question isn't, are you capable of becoming a cartel boss? The question is, what would it take to push you past your threshold? For most people reading this in comfortable homes with stable incomes, that threshold is very high. But strip away the safety net, strip away the opportunities, strip away every legitimate path to dignity and survival, and watch how fast that threshold drops. This is not an excuse. This is neuroscience. You are 13 years old. Your neighborhood has two economies, the one the government pretends exists, and the one that actually keeps people alive. You already know which one works, but here's what nobody talks about, what nobody in those other videos mentions. The moment you make your first decision to step into that world, your brain doesn't register it as crossing a line. It registers it as problem solving. Psychologists call this moral disengagement, a term coined by Albert Bandura. It's the brain's ability to deactivate its own ethical standards when survival demands it. You don't turn off your conscience. Your conscience reframes the situation so that wrong feels rational. I'm feeding my family. Everyone here does this. The system was never going to save me anyway. Sound familiar? Here's the disturbing part. You use moral disengagement every single day. Every time you buy fast fashion made in a sweatshop. Every time you ignore a homeless person. Every time you benefit from a system you know is broken. The difference between you and him isn't morality. It's what survival required of you. Let's talk about the dark triad, the three personality traits that, combined, create the most dangerous and most effective human beings on the planet. Narcissism, an unshakable belief in your own superiority, not arrogance, certainty, psychopathy, reduced emotional response to others' pain, not sadness at someone else's suffering, nothing. Machiavellianism, the instinct to see every relationship, every situation, every person as a piece on a chessboard to be moved toward your advantage. Research by Dr. Delroy Paulhus at the University of British Columbia found that dark triad traits exist on a spectrum in the general population. You probably have some. The question is how much and what environment you're in. In a stable, privileged environment, those traits make you competitive, ambitious, charming. In a war-zone neighborhood with no legitimate outlets, they make you a cartel boss. By your late 20s, you don't run a drug operation. You run a psychological ecosystem. And this is where your competitors' videos completely miss the point. They show you the guns, the money, the brutality. They don't show you the genius. Because here's what the most successful cartel bosses actually are. Master behavioral psychologists. You understand intermittent reinforcement, the same psychological mechanism behind slot machines and toxic relationships. You reward your people unpredictably, sometimes generously, sometimes harshly, for seemingly the same behavior. This creates obsessive loyalty because the human brain becomes addicted to unpredictable reward cycles. You understand social proof. You make sure everyone sees what happens to traitors, and everyone sees what happens to the loyal. You're not managing people. You're engineering their decision-making. You understand identity fusion. You don't just employ people. You make them become cartel. Their identity, their family's safety, their community's survival, all fuse to your organization. Leaving isn't just dangerous, it becomes psychologically impossible. This isn't brutality. This is applied behavioral science, the same tools used by cult leaders, corporate executives, and politicians. The difference is just the industry. Here's what the research on grandiose psychopathy tells us about why empires like yours eventually collapse. Psychopathy gives you a critical edge in the climb. Emotional detachment, fearlessness, ruthless calculation. But at the top, those same traits become fatal flaws. Because psychopathy doesn't just reduce empathy for others. Over time, it reduces your ability to accurately model other people's inner worlds. You start assuming everyone thinks like you, calculates like you, feels nothing like you, and the one person who does think exactly like you, your most loyal, most dangerous lieutenant, has been watching, learning, waiting. You trained him yourself. Dr. Robert Hare called this the psychopathic paradox. The very traits that make someone dominant make them blind to the threats closest to them. Every cartel boss in history was eventually destroyed, not by the government, not by rivals, but by someone they trusted. So here's the question I promised you at the beginning, the one that's going to sit with you. This man, this cartel boss, didn't start as a villain. He started as a problem solver in an environment where the only solutions available were violent ones. His dark triad traits didn't make him evil. His circumstances made them dangerous. Now think about yourself. Your ambition, is that so different from his? Your ability to justify your own choices, is that so different from his moral disengagement? Your desire for control, for respect, for power, is that so different from his narcissism? The uncomfortable truth that psychology keeps arriving at, study after study, is this: monsters are not born different from us. They are us, processed through different circumstances, different pressures, different thresholds. That should terrify you, not because of what he did, but because of what it says about all of us. The only thing separating you from the darkest version of yourself is the life you were lucky enough to be born into. If this video made you uncomfortable, good. That discomfort is called self-awareness, and it's the one thing a cartel boss never had. Subscribe, because next week we go deeper.